The night the power went out in that tiny house in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Marcus Reed realized how fragile strength could be. The rain slammed against the windows like fists demanding to be heard. The wind howled through the cracks in the old wooden frames, and the only bedroom heater had stopped working hours ago. His 6-year-old son was already asleep on the living room couch, wrapped in every blanket they owned. Upstairs, in the only bedroom left with a working window latch, his stepsister sat stiffly on the edge of his bed, arms folded, eyes cold as winter glass. That was the night everything changed. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet miracles that happen when hearts soften, take a moment right now to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that even broken families can find healing. Marcus had never imagined his life would look like this at 32. 3 years earlier, he had been a construction foreman in Denver, married, confident, and planning for a second child. Then a highway accident took his wife, and in a single, merciless afternoon, he became a single father to little Owen. Grief hollowed him out, but responsibility forced him forward. He moved back to Iowa to be closer to his aging father, Harold, hoping family would help fill the silence in their home. But life had one more twist waiting. Harold remarried a quiet nurse named Patricia, and with her came her daughter, Claire. Claire was 24, recently graduated from college, and nursing her own wounds from a failed engagement that had shattered her trust in people. She had sharp green eyes, a guarded expression, and a habit of speaking only when necessary. When Marcus first met her at his father's modest wedding reception, he saw someone carrying invisible weight, just like him. They became step-siblings overnight, bound not by childhood memories but by circumstance. At first, they were polite strangers under the same roof during Sunday dinners. Then, 6 months later, Harold suffered a stroke. The hospital bills drained Patricia's savings, and after Harold passed away quietly one gray November morning, the family home was sold to cover debts. Patricia moved in with her sister in Illinois, and Claire, with nowhere affordable to go, ended up in Marcus's small rental house in Cedar Rapids. It wasn't ideal. The house had 2 bedrooms, but one had severe water damage from an old roof leak. Marcus had been saving to repair it, but daycare fees and medical bills had slowed everything. For weeks, Claire slept on the living room sofa while Marcus insisted she take the couch, and he slept on the floor beside Owen's bed. Pride kept her from complaining, and exhaustion kept him from noticing how thin the line between endurance and collapse had become. Then came the storm. The Midwest winter storm warning had sounded all day, but no one expected the grid to fail. When the electricity died just after dinner, the temperature inside dropped fast. Marcus tried to stay calm, lighting candles and boiling water on the gas stove to create warmth. Owen's tiny fingers were already cold, and fear pricked at Marcus's chest like needles. The only room insulated enough to hold heat was his bedroom, where he had recently installed thick curtains. It had one queen-size bed, barely enough for 2 adults, but it was the warmest place in the house. He hesitated before asking Claire to share the space. She stood in the doorway, wrapped in a sweater, jaw tight. The tension between them had never been about attraction or impropriety. It was about pride, grief, and 2 wounded adults trying not to depend on anyone. Sharing a bed felt like crossing an invisible boundary neither of them had defined. But Owen's small cough from the hallway ended the debate. Marcus carried his son upstairs and tucked him between pillows. He spread extra blankets across the mattress and stepped back, unsure how to speak the next words. Claire didn't argue. She simply nodded once and climbed onto one edge of the bed, leaving as much space between them as possible. Marcus lay on the opposite side, rigid, staring at the ceiling while the storm raged outside. For hours, neither of them slept. The room smelled faintly of lavender detergent and candle wax. Owen's soft breathing filled the silence, a fragile reminder of what truly mattered. Marcus felt every inch of distance between him and Claire like a canyon. He wondered if she resented him for needing this arrangement, if she felt trapped by circumstances just as he did. Marcus carried guilt like a second spine. He felt guilty that he hadn't fixed the damaged bedroom sooner, guilty that Claire had no home of her own, guilty that Owen had lost his mother. Every failure echoed in his mind while the wind battered the house. He had promised himself he would never depend on anyone again, that he would be strong enough for his son alone. Yet here he was, sharing a bed with a woman who barely spoke to him because he couldn't keep the heat on. Somewhere past midnight, Owen stirred and rolled closer to Marcus. Claire shifted too, and in the darkness their shoulders almost touched. Marcus felt the tension in her posture, the careful way she kept her distance. He expected cold silence until morning, then he heard it. A whisper so soft it almost blended with the wind. Claire's voice, trembling but steady enough to reach him. She said that she knew he blamed himself for everything, but none of this was his fault. She said she had watched him wake before dawn every day, pack Owen's lunch, work overtime, and still come home with enough patience to read bedtime stories. She said she had never seen a man try so hard to hold his world together, and she told him in that fragile midnight confession that he didn't have to carry it alone. The words were simple, but they broke something open inside him. Marcus hadn't realized how desperately he needed someone to see him, not as a struggling widower or a failed provider, but as a man doing his best. In the darkness, he felt tears slide silently into his hairline. He didn't turn toward her, didn't speak, but the space between them shrank by inches. Claire continued in a near-silent murmur, admitting that she had been distant because she was afraid of becoming attached to another family that could disappear overnight. Losing her father years earlier, and then Harold had hardened her. She said she kept her heart locked because losing people hurt too much. But watching Marcus fight for his son had reminded her that love, even when fragile, was worth the risk. The storm began to weaken around dawn, the wind softening into a tired sigh. Owen slept peacefully between them, unaware that the foundation of their small fractured family had shifted in the night. Marcus finally turned slightly, enough to let his shoulder rest gently against Claire's. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't inappropriate, it was human. It was gratitude meeting vulnerability. When morning light filtered through the curtains, the house was still cold, but something inside it had warmed. The power returned by noon. Marcus fixed the broken bedroom within a month, working extra shifts and learning drywall repair from online tutorials late at night. Claire found a job at a local clinic and began contributing to rent. They established boundaries, routines, and mutual respect. But more importantly, they began talking. They talked about grief, about fear, about the loneliness that comes from pretending to be strong. Owen started calling Claire his hero after she built a cardboard castle with him during another snowy afternoon. Laughter returned to the house in cautious bursts, like sunlight testing the horizon after a long storm. Months later, on the anniversary of Harold's passing, they visited his grave together. Standing side by side, Marcus realized that family wasn't always about blood or perfect circumstances. Sometimes it was about two broken people choosing to stay when leaving would be easier. Before this story ends, I have a special request for you. Comment the word hope below if you believe that even the coldest hearts can learn to trust again. Life didn't suddenly become perfect for Marcus. Bills still arrived, grief still visited unexpectedly, but that night during the storm had changed the trajectory of his home. A single whisper had reminded him that strength doesn't mean isolation, it means allowing others to stand beside you when the wind is too strong to face alone. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of someone fighting silent battles or inspired you to be kinder to the people under your own roof, please like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe for more stories that celebrate resilience and compassion. Your engagement helps these messages reach those who might be waiting for their own midnight whisper of hope. Because sometimes, the most powerful change doesn't come from grand gestures or dramatic rescues. Sometimes it begins in a dark room, during a winter storm in the middle of the United States, when one quiet voice chooses to say, "You are not alone."